Yeah, thank you very much for listening to me. Today I'm Alexander Neupert-Doppler. I'm a political philosopher, political theorist, working in the project group for the politicization of future. And what I will present you today is a very brief presentation to my last book. I finished it 2019 in my first year at the ERSS. Genau, and now I can start. I hope you can see my presentation. This is the cover of the book I talked about. Die Gelegenheit ergreifen is the German title, to take the opportunity in English, but more important is this is smaller title, a political philosophy of Kairós. Kairós is the name of an ancient god of time, a Greek god, and it's idea or fixed term in political theory too. And I think it's very useful when we talk about and we think about historical processes, and especially in our case, transformation to a sustainable future. The title I've chosen for today, Kairós is a transformational TimeSpace, is a quote from Immanuel Wallerstein's book in 2001. And for sure, we can see Immanuel Wallerstein. I will show you all the people I'll talk about. The difference is that dead theorists like Wallerstein, who died 2019 last year, are in black and white and gray pictures. The living people will be in color. So the people we could ask in real life today. And in this quote, Kairós is a transformational time space from Wallerstein. We will find the important term of transformation, important for the IASS, and the question of time my research group is dealing with in this politicization of the future project. And for sure, we are talking, I'm talking today, we will talk together afterwards, not about an idea of time like in natural science or physics, but about historical time or ways of understanding historical processes and historical time. I will start with a quote from Wallerstein. Yeah, I have put this beside so that I can see my own presentation. Wallerstein's argument starts. Kairós as opposed to chronos, the right time as opposed to the formal time, which Paul Tillich argued was a distinction between qualitative and quantitative time. And this distinction is something I discuss in the book, and I use this both figures you can see as symbols for different understandings of time, which has a long tradition in philosophy and which is still actual, as we see in this book from 2001 in political theory today. Even if you don't know this mythological background, you maybe know some aspects of Kairós because of common sayings today. So when we have a look on the Kairós picture, we have this very popular hairstyle, which is still relevant in the saying, to seize the opportunity, to get the Kairós on the long hair on the front, before it went away, because for the opportunities we are talking, it's very important that time flies, tempus fugit. This is why Kairós has this wings on the shoulders. And the ancient Greeks was very rich in using symbols. So we have the knife's edge. Kairós is having in his hand too. So a situation on a knife's edge is also part of this mythological symbol. And for sure, the Libra of destiny for one outcome or the other. So this is the pictures, the symbols I used in the book, and I will explain you in this presentation. We have this different figures. On the one hand, the chronological time, symbolized by the god Chronos. In Western tradition, we think about this chronological time as a linear time. And this idea of linear time is linked to some political ideas since the Enlightenment, or especially in the tradition of liberalism. We have this combination of chronological time with the idea of progress, as a linear progress, that things would get better through history. For example, the German philosopher Hegel defined history as progress in time. He was very optimistic, more optimistic as we can be today in times of different crises, climate crisis, and for sure nowadays Corona crisis. And because of this lost optimism in this chronological process, in this progress into future, I suggest to use the Kairós figure as a symbol for a different way of thinking about history. Once I took part in this workshop by Barbara Adams, where we learned to draw symbolic pictures of time, and especially for kairological time, it's complicated, but for today, I've chosen a symbol like this. So it's still a process from the past into the future, even when the past is still relevant. And important are those special points in time. This is why Wallerstein is talking about kairological time as qualitative time. Modern philosopher like Charles Taylor is arguing in 2012 that history itself is made of something he's calling kairotic knots, so kairological knots in history we have to be aware of. When we talk about these kairotic knots, I suggest in the book 3 aspects I would like to present you that are very important to understand. The first is the theoretical link between kairos and crisis in different kinds. The second is the political meaning of concentration, in the sense of to concentrate our own forces, our own acting to these knots of opportunity. And the third thing is something about constitution, about constituent power to use these kairos moments in history. I will give you some examples in the next 15 minutes to make it more evident. But this will be very shortly the structure of this presentation, which is related to the structure of the book. So you will find the chapters in this presentation too. To start with, crisis and transformation is related in my book to this question, when is Kairós, chapter 2. After So the beginning of the book. And another philosopher who's important for me in this context is Ulrich Brandt, who said in 2018, transformation implies non-linear changes. So he's arguing that with this idea of chronological time, of linear progress, we are not able to understand what changes in an empathic way of transformation in history, what transformation means in this way. This fits to this argument of Immanuel Wallerstein. And he's making a very special suggestion I was interested to research. I suggest to you that the intermeshed concepts of crisis and transition, two of the commonest words in our social scientific vocabulary, especially at the ISS, are nothing but avatars of Kairós. So to give an example linked to the working fields of the ISS, we have special pathway in modern society of industrialism for some centuries. And we have the special role of the climate crisis as a challenge for us as scientists and activists and politicians and all the people who are dealing with it. And this is a very good example to understand why this chronological argument fails, that history is only technological and social process of progress, because a crisis like the climate crisis gives us an opportunity to act, but we have to think of different outcomes. For sure, on the one hand, is the threat of a climate catastrophe. On the other hand, is a wanted future, the concrete utopia of a sustainable future. And in this way, we can understand why Wallerstein says that the climate crisis, for example, can be a Kairós moment for politics of sustainability. This is for sure the time where the destination is on this knife's edge, as I showed you before in the picture in this ancient relief of the Kairós figure. The second step, it's chapter 4, because chapter 3 is in the book for the examples, is about concentration of forces and the importance of Kairós for modern political theory. It was developed by different theorists and philosophers, mostly in the 20th century and in the 21st century. And one important figure for me is Walter Benjamin too. I've chosen a quote from him related to this moment of catastrophe as a possible outcome of a crisis, when he gives in an article about definitions of basic historical terms the following: the catastrophe, as means the missed opportunity. In relation to the symbol figure of the Kairós, the moment when Kairós already went away, and all we can see from him is this bald, hairless part of the head backwards. Out of this idea of history, Benjamin gives us a hint for political action or for a general theory of change, when he's arguing, in a real political action, the choice of the right moment is crucial. Now, for me, interesting is this aspect of the choice, because an opportunity can only be an opportunity for a subject who is able to act, and we have some ideas how to act and what would be the better outcome of a catastrophe, of a crisis, to avoid catastrophes. Niklas Luhmann in this way defines the Kairós moment in the following quote. Kairós is defined by temporary opportunities to do something you want anyway. Niklas Luhmann, 1998. And what is really interesting for me in this definition is the aspect of something you want anyway, so that Kairós time is not about wonder or a big surprise, but is related to the past and to the future by the normative idea of shaping the future, of acting and producing it. In our project group, we call practices like this future making practices. And they are related to this Kairós idea in a special way. I can show you in a kind of formula by defining on my own the opportunity as a combination of first purpose and means, like Luhmann told us, but with a special interest to changing circumstances. So as a main idea for a kairological view on history, that circumstances from time to time are changing rapidly, and maybe changing the means for our political action too. What is involved in this Benjamin quote of the importance of the right moment, which is crucial for any real, and the real is important, political action. So now we can come to a third aspect and a third very interesting question. What is this constituent power I talked about, and what would it mean to use Kairós time? This is in my book, chapter 6, the last one before the final conclusions. And in this chapter, two philosophers or two theorists are important for me. One is the Italian theorist Antonio Negri, born 1933, and the US-American theorist Michael Hardt, a little bit younger, born in 1960. They're both still alive, and because of this, here presented in color. And they are part of this philosophical tradition of Kairós thinkers too. And what they are stressing is the moment of decision as a part of political acting. And in 2009, they combine it with this idea of the two different views on historical time, when they are saying we have to understand decision as an event, not as a linear accumulation of the chronos, but as an expression of the Kairós. And then we come to this moment of constituent power for using Kairós time, when they're arguing the alliance between economic and political struggles linked not with the constituted power, or not only with the constituted power, but with the constituent power, I would like to explain. So my conclusion for this presentation is something I defined as a triangle of kairological time, as I already presented to you, to get it all together in the end. So we are talking about moments of crisis in a shorter or longer way. So climate crisis for sure is not about weeks, but about decades. And for Hardt and Negri, it's important that crisis doesn't mean collapse. It offers an opportunity, but organization is required. So I think this Kairós figure is very useful to avoid two false ways of looking on history. We can avoid a deterministic understanding of history, that there is a linear, unstoppable process. But we can avoid voluntaristic approach too, which would argue that everything is possible at any time, because the Kairós time is defined by objective moment of crisis at the one hand, and subjective acting of concentrations of forces, which is included in Hardt and Negri when they stress about the importance of the organization, the political force that is required to use a kairological situation. And to use a kairological situation means a political acting in the sense of constitution. For the last quote, where it's all in, they define in 2009, so transformation needs constitutive power to create the social relationships and institutions of a new society. So to create the new is not possible at any time, but it is a special qualitative moment. This is why Wallerstein in the beginning explains the difference between chronological and kairological time with this translation into a quantitative view on historical time and a qualitatively view on historical time. So we can remember the importance of the kairological knots Charles Taylor defined. For example, in my book, I give a few examples, some related to the question of sustainability, others not, but a very clear and old example from history would be related to this picture, the Constitution of the National Assembly in the Kairós of 1798, so the French Revolution, for Hardt and Negri as a moment where people are using a crisis in a process of concentration of political powers to bring something new in the world, to act as a constitutive power, in this case by forming the National Assembly in the Kairós of 1789 to do a political change, or to start a political change in, as Benjamin would say, the right moment to do so. It's clear that opportunities are available for different proposals if they have the means to use them. And this is something interesting, especially nowadays when we are talking about Corona crisis. And I was asked a lot the last few days or weeks if the Corona crisis is a Kairós situation too. For sure, we can say that societies are in a state of crisis, and there are different forces to use it. For example, Viktor Orban, the president, is very good to use this Corona crisis to implement more authoritarian politics and to get more power for this position. So we have to understand that opportunities are available from different aspects, remembering the importance of the political proposals that find the right time. And an interesting question in the discussion in the media and in the academia too nowadays is for sure the question if the Corona time can also be, as a crisis, an aspect of nowadays Kairós for implementing politics of sustainability. If we take it serious, what Ulrich Brandt is telling us, that transformation is not a linear process, as I like to show in my book, but a process which has to deal with sometimes rapidly changes, and is able to use contingency in history by this way of thinking in opportunities. Yeah, thank you very much for listening.